The fourth fundamental fact, which any credible historical hypothesis concerning the fate of Jesus of Nazareth has to explain, is the very origin of the disciples' belief that God had raised Jesus of Nazareth from the dead. See, it's an indisputable fact that Christianity sprang into being in the middle of the first century. Now, why did this movement arise? Where did it come from? Well, all scholars agree that the reason for the birth of this Christian movement in Palestine in the middle of the first century is because these first disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe that the God of Israel had raised Jesus of Nazareth from the dead. But now that occasions an even deeper question. Where in the world did they come up with that outlandish belief? And to appreciate how outlandish it is, you need to understand something about the disciples' Jewish background. They had placed their faith in Jesus of Nazareth as the promised Jewish Messiah who would deliver Israel from her enemies. There's no conception in antecedent Judaism of a Messiah who, instead of coming and conquering Israel's enemies, would be vanquished and executed by them, and executed in so shameful and disgraceful a manner as crucifixion. This was simply unheard of in Jewish messianic expectations. Moreover, the idea that Messiah would then be raised from the dead is simply unknown in Judaism. Couple with this the fact that according to Old Testament law, anyone executed by hanging on a tree is thereby shown to be accursed by God. And the Jews applied this law to crucifixion as well. Now, what this meant is that the crucifixion showed Jesus of Nazareth out to be a man literally under the curse of God. It wasn't just that now their beloved master was dead and they had lost their rabbi. It was worse than that. It was that, in effect, the Pharisees had been right all along. For 3 years, they had been following a man accursed by God, a heretic, a Jewish schismatic, so that the crucifixion put a question mark behind everything that these men had believed in and entrusted about Jesus. In addition to that, Judaism had no concept of a resurrection occurring within history. Read the Jewish literature prior to and up through the first century. You will find nothing parallel to the resurrection of Jesus in Jewish thought. In Jewish thinking, the resurrection always occurred after the end of the world. And it was always a general resurrection of all the righteous dead or all of Israel for judgment. There was no conception of the resurrection of an isolated individual apart from the general resurrection in advance within history to glory and immortality. Confronted with Jesus' crucifixion and death, the disciples would have been thrown into complete turmoil, even if they had managed somehow to maintain their faith in him. At most, they could have preserved his tomb as a shrine where his bones could reside until the resurrection at the end of the age, when they and their beloved master would be rejoined in the kingdom of God. But they would never come up with the un-Jewish and outlandish idea that he had been already raised from the dead.